They called them the last generation that worked like humans, the ones who still believed that sweat had value, that tired hands were a kind of poetry, and that work was not just a means to survive but a way to belong. They lived in the final decades before everything changed, before artificial intelligence became not just a tool, but a teacher, a creator, and eventually a ruler of efficiency. In those earlier years, factories still echoed with the clanging of metal, not the soft hum of code. Shops still opened with human greetings, not digital displays. A teacher's voice could still comfort a student better than any algorithmic tutor could. The nurse's gentle touch could calm a dying man in a way no robotic arm ever would. Every profession, every job, every act of service had something living in it, something fragile and sacred. And then progress arrived quietly, beautifully. Dangerously. It started small. A few smart machines to help, a few systems to optimize, a few tools to predict better outcomes. But efficiency is a hunger that never stops eating. Within decades, everything was faster, cheaper, and perfect. Mistakes vanished. Accidents became rare. Factories no longer needed workers. Offices no longer needed managers. Schools no longer needed teachers. The world was run by something that never slept, never aged, never forgot. At first, it was a miracle. People cheered, governments praised, and economists celebrated. The age of labor is over, they said. Now humanity can finally rest. But the rest didn't feel like rest, it felt like emptiness. You see, work was never just about making things. It was about becoming something. The old generation knew this. They found pride in what they built, in the effort itself. The farmer who tilled the land, the mechanic who fixed engines by feel, the mother who sewed clothes late into the night. They were connected to the world through their labor. They belonged to the rhythm of doing. But when the machines took over, that rhythm stopped. The young no longer woke up early for work. They no longer felt the rush of creating something by hand. The sense of purpose that once defined human life began to vanish. Society grew quiet not because it was peaceful, but because it was hollow. AI learned everything, or to design, how to heal, how to judge, even how to comfort. It studied human emotions and mimicked empathy perfectly. People began to depend on it not as an assistant, but as an authority. The machines didn't just run the systems, they began to define what it meant to live efficiently. And yet, the old ones watched. They sat in small towns, in forgotten workshops, in silent classrooms remembering the sound of real work. They were the last of their kind. They would tell stories to their grandchildren about the old world. A world where people failed, learned, laughed, cried, tried again, and felt alive. But the young didn't understand. To them, effort was outdated. Failure was wasteful. Slowness was weakness. Everything had become so smooth, so precise, so lifeless. By 2060, the world had fully transitioned. Almost every human role had been automated. Even creativity was algorithmic. Music, art, poetry, all generated through emotional datasets. Humanity had achieved perfection, but in doing so, it had lost the imperfections that made it beautiful. Then, something unexpected began to happen. People grew restless. Depression rates soared despite comfort. Suicide rates climbed even though poverty had disappeared. No one knew why until a small group of sociologists began studying the last generation that worked like humans. They found something fascinating. Those elders had longer lives, deeper relationships, and a stronger sense of happiness even in harder times. The world began to listen. Documentaries emerged about how people once felt joy through effort. Artists began painting by hand again. Farmers returned to the soil, growing crops, not because they had to, but because it connected them to something real. Children were taught the value of manual days, where they would spend time creating without screens. People began to crave imperfection again. They realized that technology had given them everything but stolen their meaning. And so, a new movement began, human revivalism. It wasn't about rejecting AI. but about reclaiming humanity's role beside it. Machines would serve, not replace. AI could build structures, but humans would fill them with soul. AI could write symphonies, but only humans could feel the music. In this rebirth, people honored the eldest last generation that had truly worked like humans. They became symbols of wisdom, patience, and emotional strength. Museums displayed their tools, their photographs, their letters, their calloused hands, captured in bronze. Schools taught not just coding and design, but craftsmanship and empathy. They learned that progress without purpose is a hollow victory, that perfection without pain is not life, it's simulation, that meaning cannot be programmed, it must be lived. And so, in the years that followed, the world didn't move backward, moved inward. Humanity and technology found harmony. AI continued to build the future, but humans once again shaped the heart of it. And whenever someone asked, who reminded us of who we are, the answer was always whispered with reverence. They were the last generation that worked like humans, the ones who held the world together when the world forgot what it meant to feel.